Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to episode 13 of the Rugby League Coach podcast.
13 already.
Nice.
13. Well, before we start, we should probably discuss, are we superstitious? Are we going to change it to number 14? Are we going to skip number 13 or chronologically ordered? What do we think?
Lock forward, loose forward, mate.
Yeah.
Nothing to be superstitious about as well.
I just think it's crazy in this day and age that we have skyscrapers that just skip the level 13.
Totally agree.
That's crazy.
Totally agree.
You imagine being a foreman on that project and then going, we're going number 12 and then looking around going,
Am I right in thinking our producer of Queensland League Scene, Kelly Bogan, he skipped 13 without letting anybody know? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe he did. I think he was a bit concerned.
Kel Bogan, everyone, is superstitious. Look at James fixing his collar. You're not on a date. For once.
So, James,
For once, yeah.
Welcome back, James, to another episode of the Rugby League Coach podcast. We missed you the last couple of weeks.
You have, yeah, just due to work commitments. I work different shifts, you see, so I can't always be on, but I managed to fit it around today. So,
James is going to donate. James is going to donate £10 every time he says the name Bradford Bulls on the podcast to a charity of your choice, Tim Cheeseman.
Oh, very nice.
Right. Yeah.
I've not signed up for this. I better be here. That team actually won last night.
Everyone, so. James doesn't want to give anything to charity. You heard it from him.
Well, who knows if pounds is weight or money in your fake country you have over there? What do you do? Is it the metric system?
Oh, you really didn't say that.
How did we go with the Commonwealth Games anyway, fellas? I believe you were giving me a bit of lip last time we were on about the Olympic Games. It's
England and Scotland together.
Why would we do that?
Because that's what we normally do. It's just the Commonwealth Games. You break up our United Kingdom. I
spoke to a Scottish bloke the other day, and it was at a work thing, and he said to me, mate, if you were back in where I'm from, if you were from a couple of hours away in England, we'd flog you for that in the streets. So
flog you for that. We'd flog you for that in the streets.
So. This United Kingdom doesn't sound very united from the outset. What are you just
changing subject? Who's this Yeti with a beige top on, tooth missing, hair popping up everywhere, vaping moments earlier? Tim Cheeseman.
How you going, guys?
Mate, we're very great. Thanks, Tim. I think Sportsbet have got some odds on whether you're going to be having a Pepsi or a Coke or a Sunkiss during this episode. The vape was paying $1 for. Oh, no way.
Lemon, lime and bitters.
All right,
H2O.
fellas.
Just H2O for me, Taylor, lad.
Just H2O. Oh, good on you, mate.
Thank you.
You're a very healthy young lad, Lee.
That's right.
All right, well,
H2O
boys.
For me as well.
Let's dive straight into news in the rugby league world over the last couple of hours. We're not going to talk.
I think Kalyn Ponga was having on the H2O, was it?
I was going to ask whether we found James and Lee bundled up in a toilet in Leeds somewhere there.
If you're in a toilet with James, you just want to talk to you about rugby league, nothing else. You don't have to worry about that.
That's very true. I am a bit obsessed.
Investigation over. But yeah, a little bit of trouble out of Newcastle. Some more positive news coming out of Belmore with the Bulldogs finally landing their man, Cameron Ciraldo, 5-year deal to be at the helm of the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs side from next year onwards. What did we think when we heard the news originally, Tim?
I was a little bit surprised. I would have thought Potter would have got more of a go. But he was conflicting on what was being said. He wanted it, he didn't want it. But he's done really well turning those boys around.
Yeah, he's done a very good job, and he's brought a little bit of bite back to the Bulldogs there at Belmore. You like that one, Lee?
I've just got a bit of an uncomfortable thing, just a twitch, you know.
So, Lee, considering you wanted to interject so bad, you started laughing. What were your thoughts on the Ciraldo appointment?
I don't have any problems with the appointment in the sense that I think Ciraldo is clearly the coach that everybody has been talking about for so long. People have raps on him. Enough good judges have got raps on him too. He's had experience. He's done a long apprenticeship. He has been in the hot seat occasionally when Ivan Cleary's been unavailable through COVID or ill health. And then I think when they were transferring coaches over from Griffin to Cleary or whatever it may have been. So his apprenticeship and all that, got no problem. Got no problem with the appointment, Bulldogs, Seraldo. Two problems I have. Number one, I think 5 years is a risk. I think that's market forces operating, Taylor. I really do. You don't know about a rookie coach until they've gone in. You can have all the runs on the board as an assistant, and you could have done some caretaker stuff, but you don't know until they actually are in the pressure cooker. So I think 3 years would have been a better fit. But I think market forces and agents and whatnot have dictated that. Secondly, I'm with Tim in the sense that I thought Potter probably deserved another year, done enough to deserve another year. I think, I was trying not to mention his name, but Gus Gould talks some absolute rubbish in the media sometimes when it comes to what he's doing at his club. I really do respect Gus for his football nous. But honestly, when he talks about coaching appointments at his club, you've got to stop his nose from touching the camera, his Pinocchio nose. He originally said he wanted an experienced coach with Bulldogs pedigree. Well, which of those does Seraldo fit? And he's also been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that he wasn't talking to any coach, he'd not even looked at it. And it's just absolute balderdash. And I think the reason I've brought that up at this juncture is that I think Gus will have also created the miscommunication or the muddled up communication pertaining to whether Michael Potter wanted the job next year or not. That's my clear sort of thought there, because as far as I'm concerned, Michael Potter's kept his powder quite dry. He's not gone either way in public. I think when he's been asked, he's played with quite a straight back because he's playing the company line. And I think Gus has probably leaked it to some of his mates in the media that he didn't want the job, so that there wasn't a huge clamouring for Potter to take on the job, or as much as they could be. So I think he's been a bit hard done to. I've been arguing with a mate of mine today, who's a Mad Doggies fan. He says, Potter only got 4 wins out of 10. Well, that's very good with a squad that has been put together at the Bulldogs. It's a patchy squad at best. It's still missing many elements. Number 2, that's 4 more wins than Trent Barrett would have got with that team, if you ask me. So I do feel sorry for Potter, but ultimately this is the way the Bulldogs have gone with Seraldo. Good luck to them. I've got no problems with the Seraldo appointment. If there is a doubt, it's about whether he can step up. And the other thing is the quality of players he's got. He's not got Ivan Cleary at half. He's not got a great development system underneath him yet, producing players. And he's going to be in the hot seat. He's going to be doing more and more press conferences and this, that, and the other. So, yeah, it's going to be intriguing.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be in more trouble if he has Ivan Cleary at half. But maybe Nathan Cleary might have helped him out. But
I always do that, I always do that. Always. Sorry, Nathan.
You got to remember, Ivan Cleary's the mouthpiece, all right? Nathan Cleary's where the brains trust comes from for those press conferences. James, a couple of good points that Lee brought up there. Do you have anything to touch on with that subject? I mean, the idea that Lee mentioned Gus Gould meddling in, I think that makes a lot of sense when you have a look at the headlines in the past couple of months involving the Bulldogs' tenureship.
I think, Gus seems to meddle in and just seems to want to take control and be at the forefront all the time to me, really. I mean, Seraldo, he's not got the Penrith system to work with. He's been given 5 years, which is a long contract. A big deal, a big contract. But Mick Potter has done a good job. I mean, Trent Barrett wasn't winning any games with the Bulldogs. And I do remember Mick Potter from days at a certain club over here. But at a certain club, he's very, very dignified. He was actually, that's when the club started to have financial problems. He was working for free then. And he doesn't make a song and dance. He just gets on about it, working for free for a short time. So
that's a great point and a great word, dignified. Yeah. He's doing that again at the Dogs. He's dignified. He's been dignified, Taylor, hasn't
he? Yeah, he has. I was just about to put it to the group. A lot of chat these days, you hear it a lot of the time, the media, they talk about, does it pass the pub test? The way that Mick Potter's been bundled out the back door start with you, Tim. Does it pass the pub test? The pub test in your eyes? Do you think it says less about the Bulldogs that he was bundled out the back door in this way? Because it seems to be a sore point with all three of you.
Yeah, I think he has. He's been hard done by. As I said, he's turned the Dogs around from a team that couldn't put any points on to now averaging 17, 18 points. That's a massive turnaround with the same guys that Trent Barrett had. So, and I think he would have done a lot better if he had another year and a full preseason. He seems to do really, really well. And yeah, he's very dignified in how he's been. All of his media conferences and everything like that, they've been really, really good. He doesn't go over the line. He just does what he has to do.
Okay, pub test, Lee, yes or no?
I think the pub test is basically my Facebook page, and most people feel a bit sorry for Potter. I think there's a pub test before that, which is, should Potter have got the job? Everybody that was on my social media, bar one or two, wanted Potter. Bulldogs fans wanted Potter on my social media. I've got 15,000 or something on there now, so it's a fair whack. It's a bigger crowd than some NRL games, so it's a fair assessment, I think. And I would like to have seen Gus put on record his thanks to Potter this week too. That has been sadly lacking.
James, does it pass the Brewhouse test or whatever you call them over there?
I think Bulldogs have failed the test, really, because he's done a good job, and Gus Gill could at least have come out and complimented him on turning the team around a bit and getting a few wins. And as Tim said, with a pre-season at the end of the season and a full go next year, it'd have been interesting to see how it'd have gone. I mean, I remember years back here when Catalan Dragons came into the Super League. I don't know how much you follow it over there, but he started Catalan Dragons being a good team, really.
Yeah, he did.
Did a good job at St Helens as well. So,
yeah,
so he's got a good record.
I'm going to play. Sorry, mate.
Sorry.
No, you go. I interjected.
He also comes from the time that at a certain club as well in the 90s. When he was under Brian Smith and Matthew Elliott, that was a good coaching team. So he cut his teeth under good coaches, really. So yeah, I think it's been unjust the way he's been treated. So,
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. All of you fellas have mentioned that there was a little bit of a stickler for the 5 years as a rookie coach. How would it have sat with you if the Bulldogs gave him a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract, the other end of the spectrum? Do you think he has the ability to warm into the role and really show his potential as a coach with a limited time frame? Do you think the Bulldogs are more thinking to develop him at the same time?
Who are you putting that question to, Taylor, first?
I was going to put it to the group. Knowing you, Lee, you'll probably go first because you've always got something to say about everything.
So Ciraldo for 1 year or 2 years? Is that what you're saying?
If the same news came out a couple of days ago, except the news was instead of a 5-year deal, he's signing a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal.
Look, I think the market force is dictated otherwise. It's like these 10-year contracts that players are signing. I mean, who in the right mind would sign a 10-year contract or sign a player to a 10-year contract? And then once a club does it, you're sort of held to that measure, aren't you? It's so the Tigers offered Ciraldo 5 years. So I think the Bulldogs would have had to come out on top of that. So I just don't think that would have gone down at all. And I think Ciraldo, one good thing when you're not a head coach and everyone's saying nice things about you, you know what your win-loss record is?
0.
100%. You're not losing any games. And you're not cheesing any players off. You're playing the nice guy at the club as the assistant. So Ciraldo's stocks right now are probably as high as they will be. The minute his team loses a game, loses 2, loses 3, questions will be asked. And do I think that will happen? Not necessarily. I think if anybody's going to come out as a good coach, and I think he's a great option, I think the 5 years will be paraded as Gus saying it's a long-term project. Well, he had a man under him already, Mick Potter, who managed to turn the Dogs around quite quickly in a few weeks to a team that many thought were the most entertaining team in the competition. Some thought they were going to make the 8 at one point. Speculation started. Some Bulldogs fans started thinking along those lines and daring to dream. They probably left their run too late. But if they hadn't made the 8, then that essentially makes you a title contender. So if Potter can do it in a matter of weeks, then does Seraldo really need 5 years? But that's what's happened, and yeah. And I don't think after turning down 5 years at the Tigers, I don't think Seraldo was going to get out of bed for less than 5 years, to be honest.
Yeah, so that I agree. That's the market conditions. But if he had signed a 1 or 2 year deal, my question is how would that have sat with you? You're a coach. You come into a club.
Yeah,
you're in the position Seraldo's in.
Yeah.
I'd
have no problem with it, Taylor.
Do you think 1 or 2 years is enough?
No.
To turn a club and a squad like the Bulldogs around?
See, there's a way of looking at the 5 years too. It actually gives him time to do the job. But we all know what Gus is like with contracts. He renewed Griffin, and then a matter of months later sacked him. So a contract under Gus isn't probably worth the paper it's written on. And Gus caused his last club an awful lot of money in coach payouts. So he's got form. So don't be surprised if it doesn't last 5 years. And Gus will paint it as we need 5 years to rejuvenate the club. Well, maybe you do, but does that mean they can have 3 years of mediocre? I doubt it.
James?
I think probably at least a 3 year contract would have been right, really, to go with that. But as Lee says, I mean, Gus's track record for getting rid of coaches isn't great. So I think he's going to want results. Well, to see results next year, to be in a prominent playoff position, and then take it from there. But I don't think he's going to put up with any mediocrity. He's not going to give him a lot of breathing space, really.
I think top 8 with the signings that are coming in, Marnie, Kikau, and any others any others. After the run they've been on since Potter took over, I think 8th is a very realistic target. So, yeah, I mean, there's more. There's other teams competing in the competition, so it's not completely a fait accompli. But I think that's a reasonable thing to expect next year. And I tell you one thing that recruiters do, Taylor, Tim and James, when they're the ones who recruit and somebody else coaches them, it's never the recruiter that has done the recruiting wrong.
That's true.
So,
very true.
So watch this space.
It's not going to come back on Gus if it goes wrong, basically.
Correct. And I think Gus has got the keys to the castle from what I can gather. I think Gus, Gus is an interesting figure, and he's the only person that could pull Penrith together at the time that Penrith were in the mess they were in the 2011-2012 period. And he's probably the only man who can pull the Dogs together with their interesting board and eclectic mix of characters. And he's got the keys to the castle. So he's got a job that he probably wouldn't leave for a long time, because Gus is answerable to, from what I can gather, the man he stares back at in the glass.
Oh, I thought you were going to go one higher then.
Oh,
God. So this is a good point. Before I go, Tim, do you have anything to say about what would you have felt if it was a 1 or 2 year contract?
Yeah, I would have been a lot more comfortable with like a 2 year contract with performance reviews to extend it. But
club options.
Yeah, club options sort of thing. But to put it 5 years, that he's basically been told, rightio, okay, here's here's your team, and he'll most likely bring some of the young guys coming out of Penrith because he's got such a great relationship with them all. And there's a couple of young halves in the Panthers juniors that are coming through, and they'll be in absolute prime form in 2-3 years' time. And by then, he would have been able to set everything up for them. But 2 years, I think, with today's coaches, because everything's performance driven. What's to say Burton breaks his leg at the end of the year or the start of next year and his season's over? Then everyone will be going, oh, okay, well, who fills in there? Who? And it'll come back down onto him. And the team, they may stay where they are. They may improve, but to me, it feels like they're counting their chickens before they've even hatched.
I spoke to Tim prior to the show, Taylor, and he's going to donate to a charity of James's choice every time he says, rightio.
Rightio.
That's rightio, James.
Right,
okay?
Rightio.
Rightio.
Right.
But in an Aussie accent, rightio.
Yeah,
right.
Don't shoot the messenger.
You touched on our next point, Lee, several points during one of your rants there in that last segment. You spoke about Gus, I guess, being this figurehead at the Bulldogs, being sort of an all-important power. It's not too long ago, I was texting you earlier this afternoon, there was a lot of coaches in the NRL that had that own status. They were answerable to themselves. Des Hasler being one of only a few left in the competition in the modern game. We've seen reports out of Manly in the last couple of days that he's on shaky ground, Des, that he may be one of the next coaches to drop in what seems like, sort of a black plague sort of era for anyone that has a couple of losses under their belt. They just they get exiled immediately.
Yeah.
See you later. So I want to ask you, is the era of the all-empowering, all-encompassing coach coming to an end?
Well, obviously the term in rugby league is coach. In association football, around ball game, soccer, it has been in England for many years. It was manager, and the manager actually ran the club. So the role of the coach, the way it's evolved over the years, is manager in football. We have the coach in rugby league. There have been a few all-powerful coaches at clubs, like you said. I mean, Des Hasler at Manly ran the show anyway, certainly on his first incarnation. He went to the Bulldogs and demanded a lot of power, I believe, too. I can't imagine Wayne Bennett answered to many people in many of his organisations. I think Trent Robinson at the Roosters is a bit more of an embracing figure, so he brings people together anyway, so he wouldn't have any problem listening to some, as we go through the past. Can you imagine Tommy Ridonakis reporting to a director of football when he was head coach?
He would, but it'd be a couple of lefts and a couple of rights.
And I think what has happened in association football, particularly in Europe, is they've gone away from the model of the manager to the sporting director and the head coach essentially being the coach. There was some comment attributed to Ben Eichen last year when he arrived at the Broncos that I found really interesting in this context. He said that when he arrived at the Broncos, his job was to take a lot of the stress away from Kevy Walters so Kevy could just concentrate on coaching. And I found that really interesting. That just shows you some of the rubbish that the coaches end up getting involved with that don't have anything to do with the X's and O's on the training ground. And I guess Gus Gould, bringing him up again, when he arrived at Penrith, he likened himself to Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, and that he was running the show and the coach just sort of coached. So I think that's just the way sport's evolving, and I think rugby league is finally sort of starting to catch up in that regard. There has always been football managers at most NRL clubs. Some of them are quite secretarial, for want of a better term. They just do the things that the coach doesn't want to do. Others, like Frank Panisi at Melbourne Storm, are real power brokers in the place, and be under no illusions that the Storm is very much a team effort. A lot of the Storm's success were down to the various CEOs that were in there, Brian Waldron, Dave Donaghy, and many others, with Craig Bellamy as the coach, Frank Panizzi as football manager, and Paul Bunn as head of recruitment. So the other thing is clubs tend to look in rugby league. They do like to copy the successful clubs. Penrith have been a successful club for many years now, particularly in juniors. Gus was the all-powerful football manager there with coaches working underneath him. Melbourne have been a powerful franchise for so long. And I just think if you want to move with the forces, move with the times, you probably need, with all the pressures that come with head coaching, you do need another person who's in there taking some pressure away from the coach.
Well, Des requests this when he goes to clubs. I understand he requests to be in the position he finds himself in at Manly.
Yeah.
So if he is requesting this upon entry into any club, like he was at the Bulldogs and Manly previously, does that mean if the clubs are moving away from that model, that Des Hasler may find himself in retirement?
Well, Des is in his 60s anyway now. I can't imagine him rocking up at another club. I really can't. And I think Manly's a good fit for Des too. I would like to see Des being the director of football at Manly Seagulls. Like I think that's the evolution for him personally. You know, I was at Manly. I was under Des, and the only people who've won premierships at Manly Seagulls as coaches have been Des Hasler and Bozo Fulton. And they're both Manly men through and through. Des is Manly, Manly is Des. And I would love to see Des Hasler as football director, Jeff Tuvey as coach, or something like that. You know, some kind of fit like that. There's plenty of other ex-Manly folk knocking around as well who could be coach under Des and have strong relations with Des too. That I think if I were Manly and I had a crystal ball, I think I'd be trying to steer Des in that direction. If they didn't want him to coach anymore, that is. And I still think he's a damn good coach. I really do. I really do. When I say a damn good coach, I don't think he's the best coach in the world in a sense that I don't think he's the best coach in the world, but you never have an easy game against Manly. Any of Desi's teams, you don't have an easy game of football. Even if they're wooden spoon cattle, you don't have an easy game of football.
I want to move on to you, James, and I want to ask, is this model that you see more and more prominently in soccer and in the NFL as well, they have the same model. Do you think that's the right choice? Do you think that's the way to move forward? Do you think would be a good decision by the club if they went in that direction?
I think it's starting to be proven, really, because Lee talked about Ben Ikin going to the Broncos. And look how they've turned around this season. Really started performing. And, of course, Melbourne Storm have had their system for years, but from what I've understood and learned, that Melbourne Storm they must have a great system. Bellamy's left to coach a team, and no doubt he'll get involved as much as possible. But they have a great system where they always bring the character of the player that they bring into the team is very important to add to the organisation. So they've got a really good system, and I think possibly Des Hasler moving upstairs and Jeff Tuvey taking over would be an interesting one. I'll add again that Jeff Tuvey started his coaching career at a certain club over here as well.
He did.
Which will remain unnamed, yeah.
He didn't start his career. He'd been the coach at Manly already.
I did, yeah. Right. I didn't know he had it, but I know he had a spell over here with a certain club. So,
yeah.
Do you just hate charities?
I don't know what.
Oh no, I've actually done some charity. I raised some money for Rob Burrow last year. I did a charity walk last year. You all have heard of that in Australia, won't you, Rob Burrow?
Motor neurone disease is big in my family, mate. So,
yeah. Lee and I watched a couple of young people do the big freeze for MND over there at Kitchener Park. Smack bang in the middle of winter.
I was going to join them, but Taylor held me back.
Did he? Oh, did he? Yeah.
Right. I said, don't do it, Lee. You couldn't shrink anymore.
My head.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, mate, I'd douse your head in. That needs shrinking. Have a look at the soccer ball on it.
Soccer.
I mean, there's an interesting one, of course, that Lee, no doubt you'll know that Richard Agar's coming over to be assistant at New Zealand, I believe. New Zealand Warriors. So that's fairly new development as well.
Mm-hmm. It's a different country, that New Zealand, James.
Yeah, well, of course, of course.
but we count their medals.
Should I go back to the map, Taylor, see if I can find it?
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's a different country, but we'll still count their medals. Isn't that how you guys work it?
Get over it,
Taylor
Brown.
Tim, get over it.
Is your middle name Llewellyn?
Llewellyn?
Yeah, Taylor Llewellyn Brown.
I don't get that. I'm not there.
I'll just have to use your middle name Llewellyn.
No, it's not.
Oh, that sounds nice. Taylor Llewellyn Brown, it flows.
Tim.
Yeah, mate.
Tim Llewellyn Cheeseman.
I've heard a lot of chat from the Northerners over there about the possible death of men like Des and the old Wayne and I guess Gus when he was a coach and Tim Sheens and all those sorts of blokes. Is there a place in rugby league for those coaches, or do you think this new structure that's coming through, is that the way to go?
I believe it is. Yeah, like there seems to be more.
What were you doing with your eyes then, Tim?
I was closing. I was trying to think.
Oh, is that you thinking?
Yeah.
Do an instant replay so I don't have to put it into the edit.
Jeez, don't hurt yourself.
I thought you were chewing a caramel or something.
No, the way that everything's going with how the coaches are and with the management of the players and taking a lot of the responsibility away from the coaches, that seems to be freeing up a lot more of the creative juices of the coaches, where before it was the smarter, the coaches like Wayne Bennett, Des Hasler, they are very smart men, and how they get their teams going is fantastic. But I don't think the way that the game, how fast the game is becoming, and the new rules and everything, they don't seem to be able to adapt quickly enough, where you've got guys like Cleary and even Walters that have actually started to, that pressure's not on them. So they're just doing the coaching of the team. They don't have to worry about all of the other garbage that goes on with running these multi-million-dollar businesses.
And yeah, that's it. Multi-million-dollar businesses, 24-hour news cycles. Social media is a lot more prevalent than it was 10 years ago. Social media can change your day in a heartbeat. If you're a club, mobile phones. I mean, mobile phones copped for Kalyn Ponga and Kurt Mann, didn't they? It's. I remember having a phone 10 years ago and the camera was hard pressed filming anything. Never mind in a good enough resolution to pick out anybody.
If you had a Nokia 3310 15 years ago, how would you even send that file to anyone with the first one that had a camera? You'd have to get your phone and physically take it in to the newsroom and give it to them so they could connect it up with a cord. And you'd have to really hate someone to dob on them with a Nokia 3310.
I'd be too busy playing snakes on the previous version of the Nokia that you could throw around everywhere and charge your phone up on a Monday, talk on it constantly, and it'd still be full of juice on a Thursday. Yeah,
I could send a Nokia 3310 for a swim over to James. I reckon it'd still work when I got to him.
Yes.
Yep.
He just have to push the salt out of it, I reckon. I reckon it'd be good to go.
Mate, but on a serious note, it's changed everything, hasn't it? It's changed everything.
Absolutely.
It has.
So you've all mentioned that that's where we want to go away from, and that Des may be suited to that role of, football manager and then getting a new coach underneath him. We've spoke at the start of this podcast about a problematic football manager over at a team that's blue and white, and how he says things in the media that are a few issues. If Des is one of those blokes that likes all the power, that likes to be in control of everything, are we just breeding another, Gus Gould over there in the maroon and white club? Is this another? Could this be an issue with Des? If this is the role he likes to take, he likes to have the all-encompassing. I can see Des as a character that would 100% go down, watch training, and throw his 2 cents in, which is what happened with the demise of Trent Barrett.
The other week, when the Women in League Round was hijacked by the Pride jersey. Des did a speech that apparently he stayed up till midnight preparing the day after. And he was emotional and whatnot. And he basically took aim at the management of the club. You don't do that unless you think you've got leverage. You know, can you imagine Seraldo going into a press conference in his second or third year at the Dogs and saying, "Oh, Gus got this one wrong"?
I was just going to thinking that.
How long, you know? I reckon Gus would come in and hand him his letter of notice as he was leaving. He'd text it to him while he was at the press conference table. Like, it's just, you know. So that was indicative. So Des sees himself as the power there. You're referring to something that happened as well. Liverpool FC, right? Bill Shankly built the modern Liverpool and then passed on to Bob Paisley. And they reckon he really struggled without the training ground. And he was down there quite often. So it is hard. It is hard for them to detach. I think, again, Manly is a unique club, Taylor, in the sense that you're either in the tent peeing in or you're outside the tent. Sorry, you're inside the tent peeing out rather than outside the tent trying to pee in. Like, it's a unique club. And they like Manly people there, whatever that may be. And therefore, I think a director of coaching model with Des would work if it was one of his ex-players underneath him, or Tooves. I mean, the problem with Tooves is he's not coached for so long. Like, he's going to be a bit behind things there. There'll be other coaches as well that have slipped through to different places that you know, names escape me at the minute. I know Craig Sandercock, for example, who's been a assistant coach at, I think, virtually every NRL club now. He was at Manly and started his coaching career, or big chunks of his coaching career, at Manly. So there are options, and there will be players that Des has coached in the last 3 to 5 years that he think could potentially be good coaches, and they wouldn't mind being controlled by Des. So that's how it'd work, I think, mate. I'm trying to think who's in the lower grades at Manly coaching the 20s or whatnot that was an ex-player, but, you know, they'll have something in mind, I'm sure. Somebody I was at Wigan with, Tony Mestroff, he's just taken over as CEO as well, so he's got all this to deal with. Hello, Mez. So, good luck.
Oh, very good. You want to bring Manly back to the old days, get Chock Watmo in there.
Anthony Watmore, is it? Yeah.
Oh, his whole theory would be, right, it's going to be a long ball to the halves. You're going to bring the back rower under, right? And then he's just going to run through the middle. That's it.
Spud Carroll. Get Spud Carroll as coach.
Spud Carroll. Tim, before we move on to the Kalyn Ponga incident?
No, everything seemed, pretty covered everything that I can basically see. I don't really think that with the Seraldo and Gus thing, Gus is still going to have the overriding say of what actually happens there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about it. Of course, if you have been living under a rock or you forgot to pick up your newspaper this morning, Mr. Kalyn Ponga and Kurt Mann have been escorted out of a toilet cubicle together after having a long night on the drink. Andre Ponga, Kalyn's father, has come out and said that Kalyn had bought a $2.4 million house in Merriweather earlier that afternoon. He won it at auction. Congrats, Kalyn. He went out, celebrated a little too much, was feeling sick in the toilets, and Kurt Mann was in there just helping him out. I'll start with you, Lee. Any part of that story sound believable to you at all?
No.
No part at all?
No.
Is it the fact that Kalyn walked out with a drink in his hand looking fine and dandy that made you believe that might have been a fake story?
Yes.
So Mark Guy's come out today on Triple M, the Rush Hour or Triple M, Loves the Footy, whatever they call that segment, and said that he should come out in the media, face it, like Reece Walsh did earlier in the year. He would get a lot more respect from the fans, from the game for it. And this is a bit of an indicative problem of the leadership issues they have there at the Knights. James, well, do you think this is a sign of a broader issue they have if their captain's been caught doing things like this on a Saturday with an injury instead of supporting his teammates properly?
It's probably a sign of an issue within the club where it's struggling. I know that in the past, again, coming to the English game, Warrington always had problems over here with. So they had a good squad but a bad culture, and that's probably the case with Newcastle over there. I mean, I know they've had a couple of players have been suspended for turning up late for the team bus as well, haven't they? Bradman Best and there was another player involved. So yeah, maybe it's just a culture that needs that needs a strong. I mean, in fact, I did watch something on YouTube this morning. Who's the chief executive?
Sure, you did.
Peter Parr.
Right. I watched something this morning, and he's very non-committal. As if they're going to investigate what's happened. And he didn't.
The NRL are drug testing as we speak, I believe.
They don't have to drive really, so it's just going to be.
Yeah, the NRL are drug testing. I mean,
right.
They've done the integrity unit has started looking, and that's the avenue they've gone down. So, I guess I don't think Taylor will need to look past the fact that his team were playing, and he was in a public area of a pub or club or something, and he was in a cubicle with another man. I mean, or another person. His team were playing.
That's
this is, and then his dad's incriminated him in terms of alcohol or celebration by saying he was out celebrating the purchase of a new house. Well, what was he doing? Celebrating with lemonade and biscuits. So it's an awful look. I've watched NRL 360. And Ryan Kent was quite effusive that he hasn't earned his cabbage at Newcastle as being the lead he is. I mean, I have gone on record before, and I've even said to anybody who listens to me that I think Kalyn has been a little bit overrated. I don't think he plays enough good football, and I don't think he's on the field enough. And his best football is often for Queensland. Well, Newcastle pay his wages and moved heaven and earth to keep him. So... yeah, I could open up a Pandora's box here about all. It's awful. It's an awful look.
So Newcastle have come out today and said that there's not enough. Peter Parr said there's not enough evidence there. They're going to let the investigation unit, the integrity unit, look into it properly before they make any findings. They're not going to punish him because at the moment there's nothing to punish him about. Well, that is true, but as you mentioned, Lee, he was out on the drink while his team were playing in a public setting. He's supposed to be injured. He was with another bloke in the team that did have a hamstring injury. One of the worst things you can do when you are injured is go out and get on the drink, because we all know anything can sort of happen. You could slip and injure it further because you're a little bit inebriated. Tim, is there enough there to come down on these blokes as a club and show the fans that they're serious about trying to change the culture? Do you think there's enough to have some sort of action done immediately to show how serious they are?
Yes, I do. With regards to having injuries, and the CEO of Newcastle came out and said that Kalyn hasn't been told that he's not allowed to drink, but it's a head injury. He's out for the season, so it's just common sense. He plays a contact sport. You'd want to try and do your very best to stay away from getting on the grog, whether you're celebrating or not. Celebrate with water. Who cares? But there's no need to go out on the piss with one of the boys who's injured as well. Now,
sorry, Tim. To your point about when we said he's actually not done anything, there's nothing to punish him actually for yet. The way the club will get out of that and avoid that is say that Kalyn wasn't under any obligation to be at the game.
Mm.
They'll say, Adam O'Brien could easily say, yeah, I gave him the night off. That's the kind of thing that happens when you want to cover your star player in some way, it's...
But I don't see that being really good for the club itself.
So that's an Adam O'Brien or a club issue, rather than a Kalyn Ponga issue. That's either way, it's not good, is it?
It's not. Now, I've had my fair share of injuries, and every time I've been injured, gone out on the grog, I've end up doing something stupid. Most of us have with injuries. Once you start to realise that, okay, yeah, I'm injured, I've got to try and do the best to get back to my peak shape, you don't go out on the piss. Or you go out and you can go to a pub and that sort of stuff, but majority of times you want to be there supporting your teammates, regardless of if you're out for the season or anything like that. I don't think it's a really good look for Newcastle Knights at all. I think they should really stand up and say, rightio, well, you guys have done something that isn't kosher. We're not happy with it. It's not what we want as a club.
Mm.
We want you guys to be responsible. Yes, you can have the night off, but okay, have the night off, but still go to the game with your boys and help them. Talk to some of the other players he's in the leadership group. So be a leader. Go to the games. If there's something that the coach hasn't picked up on or any of the assistants hasn't picked up on, him as a player, he should be able to go up to any one of those boys and go, rightio, well, if you just try to do this, it might help. That's what the leadership, that's what I believe a leadership group is supposed to be about, helping those around you.
I've just done some Googling while Tim was talking there.
I have too. See what you've Googled and see if it's what I've Googled.
Guess how long Ponga's contract is at the club that he signed not so long ago?
Quite a long one, I imagine.
5 years.
5 years again.
Right.
Okay.
Now, since then, he's probably not really set the world on fire for Newcastle. And people are suggesting that Newcastle might not be too committed to the club. That's the problem. To bring in this conversation full circle, 5 years of employment, that it doesn't keep you on your toes, does it? What did you Google, Taylor?
I Googled a story that come up at the start of this year, and I'm bringing this up for a comparison between players and between clubs who are both struggling this year, both had their issues. But this, I'm going to ask you after this, who has the better, I guess, sort of good qualities and culture at their club? West Tigers star Jackson Hastings has gone to extraordinary lengths to support Michael Maguire after a request from the coach was blocked by the club. Jackson Hastings paid for his own flight to the Gold Coast after the Tigers knocked back the request from the coach to have Hastings and Dewey join the team in Queensland. The request was knocked on the head. That did not stop Hastings, though, who showed his commitment by putting his hand in his own pocket to ensure he could still play some role to assist the struggling side.
Leadership.
Now, I reckon if you put Jackson Hastings' salary next to Kalyn Ponga's salary, there'd be a fair bit of difference. Now, what's stopping someone like Kalyn Ponga from going to Brisbane to support his side on the weekend?
Nothing really. And from what I've seen as well, going to the Kurt Mann, I watched some pre-season games in NRL. I've not watched very much this season, but Kurt Mann was one of their better players as well. What I noticed. What kind of contract is he on? Has he just re-signed, or did he sign a while ago?
This is his first year of, I believe, a 3-year contract. He came from the Dragons.
Oh, right.
I could be wrong there in the amount of years, but I'm fairly confident this is his first of 3.
Right.
Happy for Lee to come over the top and tell me the right year.
Right.
I'm not Googling that. I'm just looking at Facebook.
Okay. At least you're honest.
Does it look like I'm researching something?
Yeah, it looks like you were trying to contribute. That's all.
I was sort of researching. But on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. I remember there was once upon a time I used to do that in the back of your classroom. Except then you used to take my phone off me. So.
Apparently Newcastle have stood down Bradman Best and Ari Tuala for discipline breaches.
They have. They were late to the team bus.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, and I got that on Facebook. So. Thank you very much.
They also stood down David Clemmer for a match for swearing at a trainer a few weeks ago.
Jesus, any players left?
Well, I have been made contact by the club.
Yeah, they need a commentator.
Well, they do. The amount of dramas coming out of the club, I could stand at the front door and just constantly commentate.
Here we are at Knight Stadium, man. We're just waiting for the next scandal to emerge.
Oh, no. I'd just wait outside the toilet block. It seems to be where all the action is.
It won't be the first time.
All right, gentlemen. So, pub test. Seraldo and Gould passes the pub test. Doesn't pass the pub test. Ponga doesn't pass the pub test. We're going to have to go to a pub and test this all out for ourselves, I think, fellas.
Depends which pub you go to.
I am planning a trip to Australia in a couple of years, so you never know.
Oh, okay.
I have a holiday over there, so we'll see. Maybe we can make it happen.
That sounds like you, isn't it? You want to go on
James's bald head in the sun here, Taylor.
I'll be getting the fact. Yeah, I need the factor 50 over here because I'm bare skinned. I'll be struggling.
Yeah.
Who are you coming over with, James?
Well, I'm just going to come over myself. Actually, I'm just going to have a holiday over there.
Have you told your missus?
I've got some relatives in Perth as well. So
just down the road, Taylor, Perth.
Yeah. Well, I know it's a bit of a way over, but yeah, I'm just planning it around about October 24. Maybe taking the grand final, hopefully. So yeah.
I thought you were going to say taking the grandkids. I remember my first flight to Australia in the early 2000s and thinking, after being on the plane for ages, and look, you look at the screen in front of you, and you go, yes, I've arrived in Australia. And then 4 hours later, you've still not landed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
and it's just this lots of darkness if you're flying at night because there's nothing doing. Apart from kangaroos and wallabies and snakes and crocodiles and whatever. It is one big mother, this country, let me tell you.
It's
a continent.
Mostly populated around the edge as well, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, I believe it's 95% of Australia lives within 50 kilometres of the water.
Were you a good geography student, James, at school?
I'd say average, probably, Lee.
Just that you've brought up a couple of geographical things here. You were talking about the proximity of Keighley, Hull, and Salford in the last time.
Yes, I was. A conversation about that when it should have been the Women in League.
That's right.
I'm not too bad. If I'm interested in an area, but I always have been in Australia as well. So,
and RLW starts this week, Taylor.
Does start this week, Lee. It's back. It's I can't wait to actually had a little study of the form guide myself, and I reckon that Dragons to win the NRLW and the Roosters to win the NRL on the same day. There you go.
I'd like to coach a women's team next.
Have you coached a women's team before, Lee?
Yep, I've coached several. I've coached New South Wales women. I've coached England under 21 women. I ran a school program of boys and girls, and it was to my curriculum, both boys and girls. So yeah.
So if you had to choose, I mean, you have hinted at ending your hiatus a couple of times through your social media, through all sorts of things. I presume once that hiatus is broken, the Rugby League Coach podcast will be the forum you choose to break that news to the world. So can you tell us if pretend this is a media room and there's all cameras and there's microphones around. Lee, are you closing in on signing a deal in the next coming days for season 2023?
I might do what Gus said. I've not even thought about it, Taylor. What I will say is what I want. I've been talking to a lot of people. What I really do want is to take a nation that is nothing now or not very much and take them to a World Cup and hopefully develop it from there as well. And I'm happy to do that with either men or women. That would be the perfect role for me, the next role. I think I'm happy to coach Thailand this year. I'll be coaching Thailand in a match against the Philippines. That will be the only game I coach in 2022, I think. But that is men. It's not women. And there's no plans for Thailand after that game. So I've literally just agreed to do it for one game. So Bomber, who's tying all that together, Jeff Bomble, he knows he knows what my other goals are. But yeah, I think something, I'd love to get a country take them to a World Cup. Ultimately, that's why I didn't stay with Poland, because they weren't really looking down that avenue at the time. So I had to look elsewhere. And that's what I want to do. Exclusively revealed here on the Rugby League Coach podcast.
That was very well answered. You just turned my question into something else completely, and you led the listener into the direction and path you wanted.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Gus on 100% footy. Next time we come on here, can you not wear your pajamas?
These aren't my pajamas. I wear these loud and proud in the great state of Queensland. I wear these.
What year did they play in that shirt? 1982.
I bought this year because it's an old school one, and I love the old school.
Tim hasn't consumed much during this podcast. I wonder what's up with him. He did it all beforehand. He had a vape. He had a can of mother.
Well, he had water, and I think he took one sip at the start of the podcast and went, "Oh, geez, now I know why I don't drink it."
Empty.
Yeah. I've just cleansed my insides out with this water.
Yeah, it was one droplet of water has cured him for the next 50 days. Onwards.
Are you working today, James?
I am. Yeah, it's in about 4 hours. So,
what route are you on today?
Just locals around Keighley area. So
do you get mostly old ladies and old men getting on the bus, or kids coming home from school?
Well, through the day you do, but the school holidays over here at the moment, so
okay,
it's not quite as busy. But
do you ever catch anybody doing anything they shouldn't on the bus?
I'm not as yet. No, we do have cameras on the buses. I've not seen anything.
Any fare dodgers?
You do get people trying it on with tickets sometimes and all that sort of thing, or trying to say they haven't. People who do it continuously. But you've got a responsibility if it's somebody who's vulnerable, say at night or something like that, if a young girl or something, to get a social responsibility to get them home. I'm a very, shall I say, easygoing bus driver.
So what, you drive them to the front door kind of thing?
Well, or just if they haven't got any money to pick them up, I'll make sure they get to where they need to go.
I was going to say, I can't imagine like a double-decker bus coming down my street when I was a kid dropping someone home. Like, it'd be a bit weird.
Particularly if there's a low bridge near it as well.
Yeah. My cul-de-sac.
It's funny. It's funny you say that.
Number 52 is just coming down here, ma.
Yeah.
When I was a kid at primary school, we got on really well with the bus driver, and one day it was pouring rain, and he said, "All right, guys." There was probably like 20 of us on the bus. He said, "I'm not going to drop any of you off at the bus stop today. I'm going to take you home. I'm going to take you home to your door."
Nice.
Which was really nice until he got down the street where I live, and it was a cul-de-sac. And that was the time I saw my first 172-point turn.
Yes,
in a bus in the pouring rain.
I do that now in my new ute.
And the poor bloke done it so we wouldn't be in the rain for long. But we all stood out in the rain to watch him try and reverse the block.
Watched him try and turn it around.
He may as well have dropped us 100 meters, 200 meters up the road where it was safe. But we all just stood and watched him anyway.
I'll tell you what I do miss. I'll tell you what I do miss from England, like when we used to play down in London or something, a bus trip home after a win.
Yeah, a nice long trip.
Stop off at the off license to get some lemonade and
of course
raspberry juice.
Yeah,
mate, they were they were the days.
Oh yeah,
and you'd always have a bus that didn't have a toilet.
Yeah,
yes.
So you had to improvise.
Well, that's you'd take the 1.5 litre water bottle on the way to the game to make sure you were hydrated, and then you just left it in the seat and say, "I'll see you later."
Or a bus trip to France.
A
bus trip to Germany.
Do you remember, Lee? We were on the way to, I forget where we were on the way to. It was in year 12. I think we were on the way to Ryde.
I wasn't in year 12. You were.
I was in year 12. Yeah. And we're on the way to Holy Cross Ryde to play them in the Schoolboys Cup. It wasn't a rival I forget what they called it. Was it a rival? Anyway,
something.
And we got to Ryde. Or wherever we were, and the bus driver stopped the bus and said, "All right, boys, all off." And you were still in the bus. Said, "And whoever down there, you can take your sample with you." And and I was next. It was me, and I was sitting next to Corey, and Corey did it on the bus.
Yeah.
And I think it was you or someone was like, "Who was that?" And looked both of us, and Corey just looked at me as if like, "Don't say anything, don't say anything."
I don't remember that.
And I'm pretty sure I got blamed for it. I caught the brunt.
I would have blamed you too.
Because Corey was such an outstanding young student. I mean, he had to wear a sleeve to cover his tattoos. I can't
believe you couldn't hold it in from Scrambletown to Ryde.
Oh, yeah. You know what Corey White's like. He would have had 10.2 litres exactly on the morning of.
Sydney traffic these days, it'd be tricky.
Yeah. And he had actually, he had a ridiculous amount of water. But that's Corey. You know what Corey's like. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that just reminded me of that story. Take your sample off the bus with you.
Yeah.
Very good.
Wonderful podcast.
It was a good podcast. It was free flowing. It was great.
Free flowing, just like you on the bus.
Yeah.
Just like me. It wasn't me on the bus. I said it was Corey White. I thrown him straight under the bus.
Mm.
Thrown him straight under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, very well. Very good.
Mm.
So James is off to work. The cheese is off to bed. Lee does whatever Lee does at night. I think you hang upside down from something, or I don't know. How do you sleep, Lee? Not naked. So
curl up like a little hedgehog.
I
Am I hosting next week?
I believe you are hosting next week.
Okay.
We've decided to do 1 week on, 1 week off with the hosting.
Nice.
Are you in for next week, boys?
Yes.
I'll be back with you when I can. I'll see what I can do with my shift leave, but if I can't, I'll be up as soon as possible.
Here's a question for you before you go, James.
Yeah.
Name the teams that have won the Super League.
Well, it's a while ago when a certain team did.
Wigan, St Helens, Leeds.
Right, I'll do it once. Go on then, Bradford. I'll do it. Yeah, I know what you're leading me into. I thought it'll be a good sport league.
Rightio.
Radio. $20 to charity.
Yeah. Rightio. Said it's fine.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching
beautiful.
an interesting documentary from 2005 where all the ex-players were getting together, Leon Price and Peacock and Robbie Paul and Brian Noble. It was quite an interesting one on YouTube. If you get any spare time to watch it about a certain club.
What about the Yorkshire accent, Taylor?
YouTube.
Oh, we're quite an interesting one on YouTube.
Yeah.
Brian Noble, Leon Price.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe I didn't pick that you were a bus driver, James. You've got the whole look.
Tickets, please, love.
Tickets, please.
Yeah.
I do
Way
what I
off
like and I like what I say.
We're off to today.
Where's they off to today, love? Ilkley Barsat.
Yeah, well, that's not far from here, actually, so it's not too far
There's
away.
a geography teacher again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I've enjoyed the podcast, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen.
Take care.
Thank you very, very much. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
See ya. Radio.
Yeah, see you when I see you. Okay.
Bye.